don't wait.
Don't wait.
Don't wait on anything. Err on the side of action and action ASAP.
I was talking with a seller the other day, and they were telling me that thanks to some Sandler tools at quantifying it, and what they discovered is that every month that this delay occurred was a $250,000 month. I think about the play Hamilton, be in the room where it happens.
That's a great way to look at it.
Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Your Sales Engine. This is your host, Mark McGraw. Hey, today I have Mr. Josh Pitchford. We're going to talk about how do we go about doing an even better job of making sure we get business closed at the end of the year, which is a key element. So we're going to talk through at least 6 really cool strategies that help us think that through so we can optimize that. I'll throw this out to you guys as well. As we enter in at the time of this recording towards the end of the year, we know we got sales kickoffs coming up at the beginning of next year. If you need a speaker or you need somebody to help facilitate a sales kickoff, something with energy. If you're looking for boring stuff, don't call us, okay? But if you want some excitement and some good things going on, in which people are going to leave with a lot of great ideas, reach out to us. We'd love to chat with you so that we can help make your sales kickoff a phenomenal experience. All right, let's dive into the conversation with Josh. Welcome back to Building Your Sales Engine. I have my guest and great friend and colleague, Mr. Josh Pitchford, Sandler trainer extraordinaire with us.
It's great to be back. It's always fun to do these.
It is fun to do these. We're having a blast.
We do.
Hey, today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how do we avoid stalls at the end of the year? How do we keep things moving? We got the fourth quarter coming around the corner.
Right.
For a lot of businesses, they do a lot of business in Q1 and they do a lot of businesses in Q4. And so what we got to do as sellers, we got to make sure that we have the right momentum, we have everything going in the right place. And we're going to start with some thinking about how do we make sure we set that up. And so we kick it off. Anything that you want to jump in on, or shall I just jump in?
As we talked before, I think this is well-timed. A lot of people are coming in, kids are getting back in school, lots of PTO and whatnot over the summer. And then all of a sudden it's,
Poof.
Hey, we're here at Q4. When we're doing this here, we're probably a month out from Q4 in 2025. But the ebbs and flows in the business, everybody knows what's coming.
Yeah.
And it can be downright crazy and chaos for a lot of people. And so hopefully they can put some of the things we're going to talk about today into practice, make life easier on themselves in a very profitable Q4 into 26.
So as this is coming out, we're going to start into Q4. And to me, let's start off here. Number one, have a sense of urgency.
No doubt.
So without a doubt, that's a big thing. And I think it's I think we should do some math. I think folks that are listening should do some math and take a look at how many days of actual selling days exist between now and the end of the year, whenever this comes out and whenever you're listening to it. I think if it's October 1st, let's say, and there's 92 days, give or take, in the quarter, you got to back out weekends. You got to back out. You got Thanksgiving a couple days. You got Christmas a couple days.
I think you're being very, very kind saying a couple days for Christmas.
You're right. You're right.
It's more like a couple weeks.
Yeah,
for
some
a
people.
lot of folks, right? It's hard to get people during the holidays.
And it takes longer for people to make decisions sometimes because, we got to check with Bob, and Bob's on vacation for, 5 days at this time. So now nothing can happen until then.
Absolutely. There's all kinds of things. You might take vacation.
No,
not at all. But the thing is we have to think about both sides of the table. It's like herding cats on one side, because like you said, I got to check with Bob. We got to do this. Bob's on vacation for 5 days. Look, can we push this meeting to Thursday? I've got my kid's holiday party on Tuesday morning. Silly stuff that happens. That's part of life.
Yeah.
But as sellers, we got to have that sense of urgency because there's a lot less time than the 92 days in October, November, and December. And we've got to have that sense of urgency.
I think everybody listening should go look at their calendar, count the number of physical days, actual days, back out weekends, back out holidays, back out vacation time, back out, sales meetings a lot of times.
Absolutely.
People are doing year-end stuff for that. I know for me, and I had a moment when my good buddy John Rosso made a comment, we're taking a trip coming up, and he made the comment, when we get back from that trip, the year's almost over. And it stuck in my head. So I ran the math. At one time, 138 days, calendar days left in the year. I had 27 available days where I wasn't either already booked for something, or it wasn't a weekend, or it wasn't a vacation or a holiday or whatever. Right. That's a tremendous loss. And everybody needs to be paying attention that there's a lot less days than we think there are between wherever we are now and the end of the year.
No doubt. I mean, maybe we're aging ourselves a little bit, but it seems like the years go faster and faster.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, I am. The thing is the reason it is because we have so much stuff that piles up. You're talking about you had like 138 days, you had 27 of them left. That's a quarter of the days.
Yeah.
That you actually have something you can do to sell or add another training day, whatever, the stuff we do in our world, right? In there. That makes things move very, very fast in the last part of the year.
Yeah, and you just have to have that stuff planned out. You have to know. I think it creates a sense of urgency in the importance of getting everything ramped up as fast as you can and leaning in. And if you know that you've got a handful of days left, you're going to use those a lot better and a lot smarter.
No doubt.
You mentioned as well that sellers need to start early in the process. So let's talk a little bit about that, Josh.
It really depends. And as we were talking through that, it really depends on what kind of business that you're into, of what start early means. If you're in a renewal type business that we find ourselves in, right, sometimes, you got to start early such that budgets are laid out earlier and earlier every year. They're having initial budget conversations. Then it's going to this level, and then it goes to the board. And it starts a heck of a lot earlier than you think. And so starting earlier, probably Q4 is probably even getting on the edge of too late. So we want people starting now or earlier here in August. And so, you got to make sure that this is something that somebody's got a line item for. If this is going to be a 2025 commitment with a 2026 spend, for instance, you got to start early to making sure that they know what's expected, what to carve out, and all those things. Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Don't wait on anything. Err on the side of action and action ASAP.
So if you are in a business where you're spending next year's money and budgets are allocated and all those things, you can't start soon enough. Even July and early August is not too soon through that process. The other thing that happens, let's be honest, let's be on the lookout for what budget funds might be left that people want to go spend.
Great point.
Not everybody has that kind of business where sometimes clients have funding that it's the end of the year and they've got to spend it or lose it, and they want to go do that. But this would be a great time to be asking that question of your prospects and clients. Hey, what budgets do you might have sitting out there that are open that might give you a chance to execute on a project here at the end of the year that you might not be able to get to?
No doubt about it.
If those funds expire.
You just got to have the right level of bonding and guts to go in and ask for, is it there? And don't be afraid, because there's stuff sitting around that some people just they've got to invest that money in their business or whatever before the year end.
Yeah, I was sitting in a meeting the other day, and somebody, made the comment, yeah, we've got X number of dollars sitting in there, and if it's not spent in the next 6 weeks, it goes away. And ears perk up.
As they should.
Absolutely. Right there. And so we can get proactive as sellers in many cases and be asking about that and be looking for those. Because what can happen is either A, those funds expire with people not paying attention to it, or B, we get at the end, the last couple of weeks or 2-3 weeks of the year, and then the prospect or client or buyer realizes it, and now they're in a total panic to try to get it spent, which is great on one hand, but it might not be able to be pulled off because of the vacation schedules and all the other things that are going on.
All the sign-off that's got to be done at that point. And so Bob's on vacation for the holidays, and he's not coming back until January 3rd or whatever the first day of 26 is this year.
And heaven forbid you got legal or purchasing involved.
Well, so I think we're going to talk about those good folks here in a bit.
Coming up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think another thing that I find when sometimes people ask me, hey, how do you accelerate deals? I think, and this is I'll forewarn everybody, this is blinding glimpse of the obvious. But at the same time, man, I think sometimes we're selling too low as sellers. And if you want action to take place, you've got to fight and claw your way up to the right level. And make sure that you're dealing with that type of person, because those people can make things happen. And that's one of the fastest, bestest way, I just made that word up, to accelerate a deal.
Hey, I always go back when I'm talking about this to the Sandler rule: when prospecting, go for the top. When getting decisions, you better go for the top. Yeah. And in Q4, you don't have time to work your way up the food chain over and over and over again, doing whatever you can to gain access higher on the food chain, so to speak. It's just too late. If Bob's got to go to his boss and his boss's boss and to get approvals and, whatever, you just don't have time. And so you gotta bring those people alongside. If you're uncomfortable with the situation of going around them, and, you need to bring them alongside and tactically do what you can to make sure we're getting in front of the right people that can give us the yeses when we need those yeses and get approvals year in.
And it's a great time, I think, at the beginning of the quarter to start making sure that you have connection points. I mean, we in most cases, we've already had those connection points, but they can get stale, and it's been a while since we've revisited the top of the org chart at a buyer, let's say. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that you might suggest to somebody to have good excuses or good reasons to get higher up in an organization and weave these conversations so we're preparing for access to power towards the end of the year?
First thing that comes to mind is, I always call it hitting the reset button. If they're a current account, right? If it's a new account, this gives a little different feel. But if you hit the reset button with a QBR or something like that and say, what have we done this year? What's the plan for next year? And start those conversations now. Because you want higher level people, and they want to think strategically and look into the future, and don't get them in the minutia of the details. But hey, let's think strategically about how is this impacting their business going forward. So whatever that is, a QVR, QBR, whatever nomenclature you use, but it's kind of that reset button kind of meeting with your client.
And to your point, I think getting strategic and asking those strategic questions to find out what that decision maker, case in point, I think if you asked a decision maker a question and you said, look, let's pretend we're wrapping up 2026 and you're looking at your results from the year. What are some of the things that you've accomplished that we can help you with in terms of your initiatives that you've got for the upcoming year? Now, either that buyer hasn't thought about those, in which case it's a chance to influence it, or at least get them to think you've asked them a good question, or they're going to start telling you what some of the objectives are, which is a great lead in to budget spends and maybe even what they need to get done at the end of this year. So we get business done this year and we're not pushing things out.
Yeah. Depending on your knowledge level of the client or what you want to accomplish with them, I could even see that question if you need to lead the witness a little bit, as I call it. If it's too broad, nice, aspirational question, what do you want at the end of 2026? And if you surprise them with that, they might be, wow, okay, I'm not ready for that one yet. You might lead the witness with a little 30-second commercial feel of here 3 particular areas that they may be thinking about. You take it from a big, broad, open-ended question to kind of the multiple choice and kind of lead it into a better conversation.
I like it.
Could be.
And so almost even go into them and say, hey, your third-party stories and say, hey, some of our other clients are thinking about these things as they enter into 2026 or the new year, I should say. And then what that would do is it leads the witness a bit in a positive way, and it gives that person a chance to think through some things that other people are thinking about.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's a really good suggestion you've got right there.
I'm good. You want to move on to number 4?
Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 that we talked about is the path to the PO. We need to know the path to the PO. So why don't you kick us off with this one as we think about what we need to do as sellers and managers to make sure we're finishing the finish line here in the right way by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go deep into, say, the Sandler decision step. and it's really knowing how are decisions made, what happens, something as tactical as who's going to sign off on this thing. Because if it comes down to one person in purchasing, one person, the last thing you want to do is do a lot of hard work. And they decide to take the last half of December off because they've got 2 weeks of PTO that expires on December 31st. And you've done a lot of hard work for 65 days and you leave with nothing. And, knowing what that exact thing, how that process works, what are the steps to the process and what timeline does that need to be on? Working collaboratively with your champion, your contacts to really understand what the timeline is and what needs to happen in that timeline to get things done.
And I think to your point, it's three things. It's the timeline, it's the dates, number one.
Absolutely.
Number two, it's the events. What are the things that need to happen? And number three, it's the people. Who needs to get involved? And I think a question that's worthy of asking as you get in towards the end of the year, who's likely to be taking vacation?
Yeah.
Who's likely to be out? Do we know of anybody that's going to be a key decision maker or a key influencer or somebody that's going to sign off on things as the end of the year? And do we know when they're going to be out so we can navigate around that?
Yeah. If you get the proper level of bonding, we've seen stories with people, they have a email thread with a bunch of people on it. I've heard gutsy stories of people just asking everybody in the buyer group, hey, is there any upcoming vacations? Is anybody, being gutsy enough with the right level of bonding, the right tonality in the message, just to make sure we don't leave anybody out.
Yeah.
Always put it in their best interest too.
That's right.
Because if, people buy for their reasons, not ours, they have an invested interest too. They're investing time, energy, effort, money into this. We don't want to leave them out in the cold too. On their side of things, obviously we want to close the business as well, but they want to get it done too.
You're bringing up, I think, a good point that I see people miss a lot, and that is there's a sense of urgency to get the deal done, but the sense of urgency oftentimes is on the seller's side because they want to make their number for the year, not on the buyer's side. And so in order to figure this thing out, we've got to figure out what's the consequences of a delay.
Absolutely.
What if there are any? Sometimes there aren't, but at least we know if that's the case.
Yeah.
But what are the consequences of this thing not happening? And if it slips out for another 90 days, what's going to happen and what's the impact financially as a result of that?
I tell you what, it's one of the best ways to answer that stall or objection, if you will, that we talked about earlier, avoiding the put-offs. Because if we start too late, it's easier just to do nothing a lot of the times. But they have to understand, and you have to understand, what's the cost of inaction. And I loved how you put that there of getting ahead of it too, because we've got to, if we're fighting an uphill battle that they've already brought it up, it looks like we're selling hard, which we are. But if we start earlier and we're ready for those stalls at your end, those things that they say, like, oh, it's going to be hard to get Bob on a meeting, or, oh, I don't know, it might just be easier to push this to January. Give me a call next year.
Yeah, it's the best.
Oh, those kind of things. That's why you're taking action now.
Yeah, and putting a dollar amount to the problem. I was talking with a seller the other day, and they were telling me that they did a good job in a meeting, thanks to some Sandler tools at quantifying it. And what they discovered is that every month that this delay occurred was a $250,000 month. That was the financial impact. And so as a result of that, and the seller asked the question, look, I don't live in your world. Is that enough to care about? And the person said, blank, yes, it's enough to care about. In this particular case. So there was emotional buy-in and commitment there to make that happen. And so I think this is something I think that a lot of people need to think about, especially if they have purchasing or other people involved, is when things get handed off to purchasing and a seller is told, hey, contact purchasing. I think a lot of times a seller says, sure, what's the number? Who should I call? And I'll look for an email introduction. But really what we should be thinking about is saying, okay, happy to do that, but let's talk about what happens if this thing gets delayed. What happens if it slows down? What do you want me to do? How should I handle that? What are the consequences if it slips out? So there's about a dozen questions that are better questions to ask than sure, can I get their contact info?
Absolutely, because purchasing doesn't know the $250,000. What was it, a month? $250,000 a month.
That's right.
They might actually be incentivized to push it to next year due to budgets. But that who you're talking to may realize it's going to cost far more to not take the action. And so, having those questions in your back pocket as far as what's going to lend urgency to everyone and make them part of your selling team is a good way to think about it. Who on that buying side do I need as part of my selling team if it's going to purchasing, legal, all of those good folks?
And so those are, we got a sense of urgency. We got start early. We've got get higher in the organization and have an excuse or a reason to reach out to those people. We talked a little bit about that. Know the path to the PO. One more moment on that. And I know you do too, I love getting a white piece of paper and drawing a timeline and sitting there with somebody and saying, well, let's just map this out. Let's just take a look and see what needs to happen and just co-create that timeline with the buyer for how you can go get it, especially on a project that's got some complexity to it.
No doubt. Normally we're a lot better at selling and knowing what needs to happen than they do.
A lot of times.
Most of the time. And so we can even make suggestions in there of stuff that might be like, hey, is a project this size, is there going to be procurement stuff, legal stuff? They might go, oh, I hadn't even thought about those guys.
IT need to be involved.
Everybody. And they don't even think about it. We should be a collaborative seller, which I believe is one step above consultative because we're working with them to get it done. What are we doing to collaborate with them? And you can put it on a piece of paper if you're in person. If you have a way to do that, on a virtual meeting, you have a way to. People pay attention when there's numbers involved and when you're writing stuff down. They lean in and pay attention, and they're part of the process at that point. So knowing how to do that in this day and age is a distinct skill set in sales you need.
I had a seller bring up to me the other day, said, hey, look, if I bring that up, that let's say that IT and security needs to be involved, isn't that going to slow the thing down? And am I going to introduce, I feel like I'm going to introduce another step in the process, and that's going to slow things down. And, what would you say to that? I mean,
absolutely. It's going to be there regardless. Wouldn't you want to be ahead of it, part of the conversation? Because what ends up happening, if we don't bring it up, we're not a part of the conversation. Remember when they say, well, we're going to get together as a team and look this over. Well, what comes up is, man, we got to have IT involved. And somebody says, well, this might just be better to push to January. And you're not a part of the conversation. And you add credibility, you're part of the conversation, you can do something about it if you bring it up yourself.
Yeah, I think about the play Hamilton, be in the room where it happens.
That's a great way to look at it.
And to me, I'd rather be in the room when it happens. And the chances of you as a seller introducing an idea that they hadn't either considered or that's not going to happen, maybe they haven't considered it, but they're going to hit that fork in the road. They're going to hit that thing sooner or later, Absolutely. Whether they know it or not. We just we're in the room when it's brought up. And that allows us to influence things.
It looks brilliant when you do it because they're like, wow, you've done this before. That's what they're thinking, whether consciously or unconsciously. They're like, man, they know what they're doing. We've been here before. And I think that goes to the last point you were going to bring up, be ready for the put off. All their excuses, if you get ahead of them, makes it so much easier.
It just does. It just does. Know what they're likely to bring up. I mean, I've said before, there's probably a dozen objections that people have. Mm-hmm. It's not 100 million. No. It's maybe a dozen. And I think we as good sellers, we should know and have a good response. Sandler has great frameworks for those things. And we should know and have good responses such that we can navigate the handful of objections that we get.
It's not that many. You don't have to buy your 101 objections handling book. It's just a few. They just have a different flavor depending on the business.
And you just got to know the right thing to say at the right time.
Absolutely. Pull the right card out.
So. Indeed. Any final thoughts around this? I think that's a comprehensive list, comprehensive look at it.
I'm excited. 'Tis the season for us in sales. It's a good time, Q4 and all those things. Embrace the chaos. Embrace it. It's fun. That's what we signed up for. So have a good time. Hopefully some of these things the people out there that can employ and go make it great.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll do this again. Enjoyed it so much as always, Josh.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.